Hi again then guys, and so we've got another straight line speed build for Forza Motorsport 6 for you today, and this time we're going slightly away from supercars and hypercars and exotics and more into racing territory with the 2003 Le Mans winning Bentley Speed 8. Now as you can see, the front end on this car is raised quite high, so if you don't want that to be the case on your model, maybe you want to have slightly better handling as well, then I would change that. If however you just want this build and don't really care about that, then you may as well go over to the storefront, as with all of my tunes, and just type in the keyword HSG or look up the creator CORRUPTEDDISC and you will find this build. Now, that being said, what is the tune? Well, as far as upgrades, you can fit it with drag tyres to get even quicker acceleration, but to some degree I want to keep the handling in place. So I've opted not to do that, although of course you can if you're purely using it as a drag car. And now for the build itself, I would recommend a final drive of 2.3, then for the individual gears 3.25, 2.5, 2, 1.5, 1.3 and 1.03. Then for the alignment on the car, for the camber and tow we've gone neutral, as I often do, with, as I often go for, the highest possible caster angle. As far as the anti-roll, again we've just rounded them off to 20 and 15, with the springs also rounded off to 660 and 720. As I said, the ride height is much higher at the front. In fact, it's the maximum on the front and the lowest on the rear, so feel free to change that if you want, but it does slightly affect, in particular, your top end speed. As far as the dampers, we've rounded those off to 10 and 10.5 and then 7 on both. As far as downforce, you want it as low as possible for ultimate top speed, but of course increase it a little bit if you need better handling. And finally for the diff, I've just made a slight alteration to 70% acceleration and 20% deceleration. So that's it for the build. Now let's of course take this out to the Le Mans to see if it can reach that speed. Now with the suspension as it is set up with the front raised, ironically under certain circumstances it can actually make the car better for some tracks. It actually increases the car's understeer, which for those who are unfamiliar with the term basically means that it makes the handling a little bit heavier and increases the radius of the turn, and in effect makes the car want to pull out towards the outside of the corner a bit more. On certain tracks that can actually be quite useful, and one of those tracks is actually, ironically, potentially the Le Mans. Now as far as straight line speed, as you can see, it gets up to 240 with no problem. The speed does feel with some other cars as well on Forza 6 that it could do more, but at least with what we've got it is fast enough to outrun plenty of other Le Mans cars. So overall, if you do decide to use this speed build, and I would encourage you to, as always, mess around with the settings, find what works best for you, and try and make it even better than I have, I would always encourage that, then obviously I hope you find it fun and obviously competitive. And if you'd like to keep up with other builds like this, not just for race cars but for supercars and various others as well, you can do that at the end of this video or down below. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.